So welcome. I'm here with my friend Stephanie Socha. Socha. Oh, I said it wrong again.
Socha, Socha,
Socha.
Soha. It's supposed to be
Um,
Soha, but for some reason, my husband's family calls it Socha.
Socha. There we go.
Yeah.
Um, and she has been sewing for quite some time, and I actually got to know Stephanie a little bit through her podcast, Make It and Tech Great. And I just love connecting with others that sew and bringing them here to you to hear their stories as well. So, Stephanie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us
Sure.
where you're from?
Okay, well, as you said, Stephanie Socha, and I'm from Chicago. I grew up in the southwest suburb here, and now I'm very close to this. I've been close to the city for the past 25 plus years. So I'm definitely a city person, city girl. But so yeah. And what was your other question?
So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, when did you start sewing? I know it is a big part of
Okay.
your life now.
Yes, yeah, I can't imagine my life without it. And so, okay, I grew up in the 70s as a little kid and 80s, kind of, getting a little preteen and stuff. So, um, and crafting was very big in the 70s and 80s, or the beginning of the 80s. And so as a kid, I just gravitated toward it. I loved it. I hand sew, cross stitch. I did the little pillow latch hooks were big back then. And my grandmother taught me how to crochet, but my mom had a sewing machine, and that's one of the things like that you did in the 70s. You sewed a lot of your clothes because it was uh at that time probably less expensive than the store bought. So she was sewing like I'm the oldest of six. So she sewed us all like our summer twin, like, short sets, the tanks and the shorts and the terry cloth. And I loved being around the fabrics. I loved going to the fabric
Mm.
shop, and I begged and begged my mom to teach me how to sew, or if I could just use the sewing machine. And yeah, that was nothing. She just she did not I think it was because mostly she really didn't enjoy it herself, and
Oh,
she was just doing it to like make the clothes,
and
do a
maybe be
project and be done
frugal.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So until college, that's when for the first time I could touch a sewing machine. And I made a contrast line swag because in the early 90s it was all about the swags, jabots and stuff. So I was very proud of that. That was the very first thing I've ever made on a sewing machine.
Well,
And it was a
so
window
like
treatment.
when you say like you literally weren't allowed to touch the sewing machine.
Mm-mm.
Like, oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's kind of a shame that you missed
I
out on like your
know.
young life of
Yeah.
sewing, but
Hmm.
that you kept at it. And even though you couldn't sew when you were younger, then you like persevered. So like after you made that first swag, like did you kind of like catch the fire to like just want to keep sewing and
I was so
creating?
proud of it. And my roommates in college were just like, that's awesome and can't believe you did that. I still have it. I won't throw it away. And um so it's yeah, and then you go to college and that's all I did. I didn't really like do anything else until like my later, oh geez, no. Because then I went to design school. So I was back in school again in my late 20s. So, but no, I did pick it up again because it was in, yeah, like the mid 2000s to like 2007. It was when I really started sewing more seriously, like as a hobby.
Mhm.
I just dabbled in it before. And I took some beginning classes at a local sewing shop in the city. It was so great. I loved it. And uh format that they had there was that it was a 4-hour class. You signed up for it and you came, you lugged your sewing machine, and you made a project from start to finish. And I
Okay.
loved that. That for me was one of the biggest draws, that you would come out of there with something you made on your,
Yeah.
you created something from raw goods. So and so I took several classes there, pajama pants, the pillows,
Yeah.
and I actually took a duvet class. So we made duvets
Okay.
start to finish in the class. And that was really great. I even still have the duvet. It's on a guest bed. And um, then I also took an alterations class there.
Oh,
That was
cool.
pretty much my first exposure to actually like um altering clothes or mending or taking them in, hemming. So that was really a great class. It was equally like amazing and overwhelming for me at that point because I was still sort of in the beginning of my sewing
Okay.
journey. And so like if I were to take it now, I would totally like, it would be overwhelming. I would understand everything she's saying, but at the time I was just trying to like figure it out. And but it was still good. The one of the best things I learned from there is like when you take like a knit t-shirt in and you just taper from the
Mm-hmm.
top in and out, back
Yes.
out to the hips. So that was great. I've done that many times.
Yeah, to give like
And
more of a waistline so that it has that slimming
yes.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And just some other things that I learned from that class was great. And I love that shop, but it's not there anymore. But the owner, Rachel, now has what's called Oak Fabrics. It's in the city of Chicago, but she sells online too. And I just love her. She was is the that first format of hers. I talked with her like, oh, why don't you have the classes? But it's hard. It's hard to really profit from that, and
Yeah.
hiring the right instructors too. So yeah. But I was just it was such a unique business formula. And that
Yes.
was before Craftsy, like right before Craftsy came out. So there weren't really a lot of online courses. And I would say her courses were kind of like in that format where you made something from beginning to end,
Mm-hmm.
but in person.
Yeah.
So it was great. Yeah, so that was around 2008. And
Mm-hmm.
then in 2010 I started quilting, and really I've just like been like doing everything possible with sewing, machine, hand, sashiko now I'm into, mending and all of that. So I love it. It's so much fun.
Oh, so when you were starting, what would you say was like the what did you feel like was the best project for a beginner? Like as a beginner that you felt like you could master. I know you said like alterations at first, taking that class was a little bit challenging because there's
Mhm.
so much, I guess,
Yeah.
when you don't have like a solid foundation yet.
Right. Yeah, because there were things in that class too that we learned to do on the serger, and I had never touched a serger before.
Yeah.
So I definitely know what it is to have that serger fear. And now, like, I I mean my serger's always out. I'm like always
Hmm.
serging, overlocking something,
Yes.
and I love it. I don't know what I would do without it. So but yeah, when you don't know it's kind of scary at first. But like the beginning projects, I think everybody like does the pajama pants, and
I
it's cliche, but it's good. I think as far as if you want to make clothing, that's probably a great project to start with because um it's easy. It's maybe like what, 3 seams and then
mm,
your elastic waistband.
yes. Yeah. I love hearing you say that because I often, in fact, on the classes that I've done, I've often started them with pajama pants because it's people that have never, they've never sewed before.
Mhm.
And number one, I feel like the fabric is pretty easy to work with. And there's so much room for error because pajama pants are baggy anyway. And so it
Hmm.
doesn't really matter and nobody's really going to see them, but you have this feeling of like, I did this. And yeah, it's a lot of straight seams. So
Hmm.
it's not super
Yeah,
complicated.
you're right. And if you're taking a class in person, like I did, you're making them for yourself and it's fun. And, part of the fun for me, one is choosing the fabric. That's
Yeah.
fun. And you're right, cotton is just really easy to sew
Yeah.
with. I mean, you wouldn't want to start off with like a knit, um, you know, anything
Yeah. Yeah.
as your very first project. I mean, I
No.
would definitely do that and the pillow for a nice home deck project. And those two projects are nice because you will get a lot of use out of them too.
Yes.
You're not
Yeah.
making something and then it just like is not seen or used or whatever. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And there's definitely a lot of gratification about wearing those fun pajama pants that you made.
mm-hmm. Yep.
That's for sure. Um, yeah, and so you also mentioned a duvet cover, if we drift for
Yes.
just a minute. So what size bed was that for? Because when I think of duvet covers, I've made a couple. I don't make a lot of them, but it's so much fabric because so did you like make them out of old sheets? I've seen them made out of sheets before. Or did you actually buy like fabric yardage?
The supply list, gave yardage. It also gave suggestions of you could use sheets. So I got I don't think they sell this anymore, but oh, what's the name of that store now? Urban Outfitters maybe, or it's Urban something, but
Okay.
it's a very bohemian type store,
Hmm.
and they used to sell these pieces of fabric that was just like it could be used on beds, or
Okay.
you could pin them on the wall like a tapestry, but it basically was like a huge piece of cotton that was basically like a sheet. Um, and they had really large, you know, nice designs on there, which would also be good for like a
Yeah.
large bed covering, like a duvet
Right.
cover, and it was a lightweight cotton, so it was perfect. So
Okay.
I got two of those, and we used those. So yeah, you could use yardage, but they did
Mhm.
really strongly recommend like just getting sheets in the size that you want to make, because
Okay.
then there's no seaming involved.
Yeah.
I mean, you could
Well,
just, yeah. And
yeah,
I
that
think
was
most of
exactly my
us,
question.
yeah,
Hmm.
I think most everyone, when I remember the class, had done the same thing. It was like the sheets thing was so easy. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
But that
Definitely.
class though, that class, the closure was something I probably would not recommend putting into a, more of a beginner basic class, because we sewed in snap tape.
Oh, I
And
have not really used snap tape very much. Okay.
yeah, and it's like putting a zipper in, but the round snaps, there's not a lot of room to stitch on either side of the
Okay.
snap tape. And my stitches are like, going down there, but nobody sees it because it's
Right, right,
snapping towards the inside. And
right.
it feels great to just go, when you have to take it off and wash it, but putting it back together again is a pain. So now I just only open up like enough to get the duvet out.
To get it out.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
funny. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so I'd love to hear too because you've obviously like brought sewing into your life and do it on a regular basis like at home. So what are some ways that like maybe you've kept your space like organized? You must keep your sewing machines out in like you don't
Mhm.
put them away if you're
Right.
sewing that much, I'm assuming. Like what are
Hmm.
some tips that you would have for like how to
Yeah.
maybe set up a space in your home?
Well, I'm fortunate because I have a dedicated room. So if you can't have a
Okay.
dedicated room, it's a lot easier to have your machines out all the time. However, I did just get, it was a Christmas gift, but I got this nice little, from Amazon, not expensive, but it's just a little cabinet where you can put a small size sewing machine behind the door.
Mm.
The door has a little spool holders, and I use that downstairs in the living room when I sew down there with my little travel machine. But it's a great little like sewing studio
Mm.
in and of itself that could be closed up, and it's a piece of furniture. So it's like a small little console table or something that's only like 30 whatever inches wide. So yeah, I just got that. So that's what I probably recommend for people who have to sew in not a dedicated sewing space, but
Yeah.
have to put it away. Because you can have everything like right there and it's easier.
Mhm.
It's not like you're digging it out of a closet. It's like right there,
Yeah.
concealed in the open.
Yes.
But a dedicated sewing space, um, I just used what I have. So my drafting table from design when I was in design school is my main sewing table because it's like
Okay.
really big. Like it's well not that big, but basically it's like 3 feet by
Mhm.
4
Okay.
feet or something like that. Yeah. So I fit on the one side my sewing machine, and on the directly opposite to it is the serger. Uh, and
Okay.
then and then I have a dining table that I put on just bed risers to comfortable cutting height.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Nice.
because if you cut at a dining table, it really is hard on your back.
Yeah,
And
it's a little
so,
low.
yeah. And I guess because I'm taller too, so it just
Okay.
it's was always so when I learned about like the work table height, so that's I have that over there separate from the sewing machine table. And just the main thing the way I organize is how I use stuff. So um, I have threads very close to the sewing machine. And also, I think people have to understand their own organizing style because we have those.
We do.
You know, we're either the type that likes to organize and everything is all surfaces are clean, nothing's out, and things are behind the doors and in the drawers. And I am a hybrid of that, but I have a ton of stuff out because I like to see it and I like to decorate with it. So I like my colorful threads out, plus they're
Mm,
within reach. And I have just fabrics on, you can see behind me, fabrics in
yes,
there.
yes. Yeah.
So I'm one of those that likes to see stuff out and make it as pretty as possible. But you could do it either way because that's not the
Mm,
only way. You just have to make it to where it's convenient for you.
yes.
So, like the work table has the rotary cutters over there. I don't have a rotary cutter by my
Okay,
sewing
right. That
machine,
makes
but it's
sense.
on the cutting
Mhm.
table. Yeah. So, stuff like that, just like after you sew for a while, if you're at the beginning of your sewing journey, you'll develop it because my sewing room has changed so many times over the years.
Definitely.
And I
Yeah.
started with sewing just at the dining table height. I had no idea that I could put them on risers and save my back a lot of pain in my neck.
Yeah.
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 So
Well, and
it's
that's true.
evolved. Yeah.
I mean, all right, growing up, I think I sewed kind of at the dining room table often, or yeah, because you use what you have, and if you don't have that dedicated space, that's so true.
Mhm.
So, would you have like a favorite sewing tool that you feel like is like essential?
It's so boring, but it's the seam ripper. Can't do anything without
Yes,
that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the seam ripper is like such a great multi-use tool. I can use it as a stiletto to hold the fabric when it gets close to the, presser foot. I do that a lot. Um, I sometimes use it just to cut threads, like,
Oh,
it-
okay, yeah, yeah,
you can use it just for that. And of course also, ripping out your stitches. But I just feel like it's a versatile tool, and I have one at every machine. So they're
yeah.
inexpensive enough to where, one by my machine, by my serger, by my other machine. So,
That's such a good idea. I definitely have been known to tell people, well, if you want to sew, you have to learn to make friends with a seam ripper.
mm-hmm.
Because no matter what you do, you're gonna have something that you're gonna be ripping out, especially in alterations. But
Hmm.
even
Yeah.
in every project, there's always a little something that needs
Mhm.
tweaking.
Yeah, and I
That's for
always
sure.
was like when I first started, I remember very perfectionist and like the goal was to not have to use the seam ripper. And that was much more of a stressful time, I would say. Like now that this I love the seam ripper, it's like a very good friend to me. I have no fear and I can do things much quicker and more perfect when using the seam ripper.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's funny. I find so I when I'm teaching people to sew and to use the seam ripper, the tendency is that they want to like dig in and like kind of just go like this and like this really odd and I'm like, no, no, there's a little like sharp edge right here, and you just kind of push and all of a sudden they pop. You don't have to like go
Mhm.
flicking it all, a foot high.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Yeah. But that's a good one. The seam ripper, definitely. Um, so I'm curious. So you have a serger. So what other machines do you have? So I had someone ask me recently, like, of course, it's not people ask all the time, like, what's the best sewing machine to buy? And I'm like, that's not even totally a fair question.
Mhm.
Meaning there's
Yeah.
just so many out there. But I was curious which like what kind of machines you like to use as like a regular, like straight, you know, machine.
Yeah, just like a general sew all
Yeah.
like and well, uh then that would be a machine that can do a straight stitch and a zigzag is really all you
Yeah.
need if you really pare it down. But so you don't need the machine that has like 200 decorative stitches at all. In
Right.
fact, I would prefer they don't have that many anyway, but uh I it's hard because now I'm just trying to think of it like, well, where I was at the beginning. So yeah, I just had like a FAF 2010 at the very, very beginning, and that actually was a very good machine to have, even though I that's a whole nother
Okay.
story that I got a lemon, but um it had the dual feed little thing that drops down and
Yeah.
everything. So I had like a really like beyond beginner machine at the beginning. So I got used to those kind of features.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went down to then that one didn't work anymore, I did get more of a basic brother um, from a sewing machines shop. So it's not, I wouldn't recommend getting anything from the big box stores if you can help it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they're they're all plastic components
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like you'll make it so much harder on yourself because it's not going to work the way it should
Mm-hmm.
properly and people might watch other people on whatever YouTube or something and they make it look so easy and stuff but probably because they have a more of a mid-range type of a machine I would say really like um invest a little bit more than you think you would for a basic sewing machine. I'm talking like, you know, four, $500. I mean, that just would be me based on my
Yeah.
all of my experience. I would say that it's worth it because if you start with like the $100 machine, it's very
Yeah.
frustrating. Just let me tell you, it will be frustrating for you. So,
Yeah, definitely. I think the $100 machines there's not too much in that range. That would be,
right. Yeah.
um, yeah. But I have used a brother. I don't have any, but if you used a brother to teach classes, that's not too bad. That is reasonable. But I know there's so
Mhm.
much range of sewing machines for sure. I know that it can be
But
a
Brother,
little
yeah,
overwhelming
Brother
for
has
people.
$300 machines that are probably
They do.
decent too.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
for
about
sure.
what
That's
the
a good name, I would say. Brother, Baby
yeah.
Lock, Janome. I have a
Yeah.
Bernina and I have a Juki. So, I mean, the more
Yeah.
that you sew and the more that you get into stuff, you'll expand your horizons, which
Yes.
is always fun.
Yes. Yes. It sounds like you have quite a few. I was counting all of mine the other day and I'm like, oh yeah, I think I forgot how many. I have at least seven, maybe more.
Oh yeah, my husband loves to like, exaggerate. He's like, if someone would say ask me that or whatever, we're talking and he's like, oh, she's got like 10, 12 machines. I'm like, I do not.
Uh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I know like the other day someone just was like, they contacted me, their mother had passed away, and they're like, I have this machine. It looks like a pretty good machine. Would you like it? And so I was like, I couldn't help myself.
Hmm. Yeah, I
I
know
was
the
like,
feeling.
well, sure.
I inherited a very good, like a 1970s singer in the table from my husband's
Oh,
aunt.
okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very good. It's in the guest bedroom. But
Nice.
it works. I was just sewing on it with my niece last month, and those are like the machines that vintage machines are really good to get too. I mean, you
Yes.
could
Yeah.
definitely anything before 1970, you really can't go wrong as far as a vintage machine. They're basic and um can
And they're
be
not plastic.
maintained easier and they're not plastic. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy
Definitely.
duty, made to last.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me here. Now, where can people find you? And
They okay, so I'm really only on I'm on Facebook, but I'm not. So Instagram, Stephanie.socha.design. So you'll have it in your show notes,
yes,
but
I'll
it's
put
the
it in the show
traditional
notes.
spelling, yeah, it's traditional spelling of Stephanie dot
Okay.
Socha dot design. That's Instagram. And
Mm.
my website is stephaniesociadesign.com or makeanddecorate.com because I have a podcast as well. Make and Decorate with Stephanie.
Yeah.
Uh, mhm.
And how often does your podcast come out? Is it
It goes by
every
seasons, and
okay.
I usually through the fall I start up like September, October through the end of the year, and then I take a break, and then I start up again in February and go to spring. So on a
Okay.
bi-weekly basis, so every other week.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
But you're on
yeah,
all of the Apple and the Spotify and
yeah,
all.
all of
Yeah,
the
definitely.
platforms. I'm there.
Great.
And actually, podcasts are coming to YouTube as far as audio goes. So soon I will get my RSS feed going on there, and people can also listen
Okay.
to the podcasts on YouTube.
Okay.
Mm.
Awesome. Wonderful.
Thanks
Well,
for
thank
having
you.
me.
Yeah, it was so nice to chat with you and hear about your sewing stories.
Oh, thank you so much. It was just really a nice time chatting with you, and thank you for
Mm,
having me on.
yes.